Making a good adaptation of a video game is so hard that a term has been coined called the video game curse, which refers to an overwhelming history of failed video game adaptations. But it's not just game adaptations that struggle. Taking a story that people love and then making changes that are substantial enough to warrant the remake is incredibly difficult, because in the process of making an adaptation, you're wielding a double-edged sword. You're working with the momentum of the previously successful story, you start with an already established fan base, and generally speaking, it's easier to generate discussion about your adaptation. And while there definitely are benefits to adapting a form of media, to do it well is overwhelmingly difficult. In one of my previous videos, I talked about how expectations can be the bane of enjoyment. And whenever you're adapting a story that people consider a masterpiece, you're working against those expectations constantly. Any change you make, no matter how good it is, someone will have an issue with. But inherent to making an adaptation is the requirement of change. You can't tell the story in an exact one-for-one way. Many storytelling tools used in the old medium won't work in the new. Like, for example, constantly fighting zombies in a video game is engaging, but in a show it would become redundant very quickly. And this is where today's question comes in. How did HBO's The Last of Us do in adapting a masterpiece? The first video essay I made that garnered any attention was about another video game adaptation, Arcane. What Arcane was setting out to do was inherently different than what The Last of Us did. League of Legends does not have a strong story that is essential to the gameplay. They simply had to build a world and story from the characters and backdrop they were given. And I can confidently say that Arcane is one of my favorite shows. The Last of Us had a different job than Arcane. They were working with an already established masterpiece of a story. Now, both adaptations had to deal with heavy expectations, and I think a lot of people undermine the difficulty that those expectations bring, because when you're working on a story that people hold very dear, they're incredibly protective of it. The Last of Us did something very unique, where many shots were matched one for one, while at other moments the story completely broke away from what happened in the game. In my previous videos, I argued that these decisions were the right ones. I believe in a lot of the changes made in The Last of Us. But there is aspects of the show that disappoint me. I'm incredibly disappointed in the amount of time given to The Last of Us. 9 episodes was not enough. I think I would have been much more satisfied with the show if it was given more time. The crew behind The Last of Us showcased that it was capable of flourishing within a slower and more spaced out form of storytelling. But sadly, I think there were a couple crucial components of the adaptation that fell flat. I'm not normally one to need a lot of zombies. And in the first 3 episodes, I feel like they pulled back a lot of the exposure to the infected in the show. And at first I enjoyed it, because I don't think the story is very much about the infected. However, they are a crucial building block for the story to resonate fully. The swarm in episode 5 of Infected was a truly terrifying moment. And we needed more of those, because to sell the point that the humans are the real monsters, first you need to be scared of the infected. It's such a shame that after episode 5, it felt like the infected completely disappeared. In the game, the infected are terrifying, but slowly as you progress in the story, something you realize is they're predictable. They act in self-preservation, they are consistent, and as you interact more and more with different humans across your journey, you realize humans are not predictable. Humans' evils are manipulative and terrifying. Now this is really important for The Last of Us to hit, because when Joel makes that decision in the finale, it's very important that you understand. Now, with everything I said about the shortcomings of HBO's The Last of Us, there are also aspects of the adaptation that I enjoyed significantly more than the game. I adored Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey's representations of Joel and Ellie. I think there were some truly impactful, emotional moments in the show that weren't in the game, lines that will stick with me for a long time. But when you're adapting a masterpiece, I think all you can do is hope that you do it justice. I think the best way to consume The Last of Us is playing the game and watching the show, because each offers unique, beautiful additions to the story. Because that's what The Last of Us is, a beautiful story built around amazing characters. With the finale of The Last of Us now aired, I'm trying to transition away from making just video essays about this story. I've released 2 new videos that I'd love for you to consider checking out. If my style of making videos appeals to you, please consider watching them by clicking here. Thank you.